Shalom and greetings from Jerusalem, Jane. This is one of the worst days in the Jewish homeland since October 7. This morning, 6 families here in Israel was notified that their loved one was brutally murdered, executed by Hamas within the last 48 hours, just before the IDF managed to get to them and rescue them alive. 6 precious hostages who showed sign of neglect, not being able to shower for a long time. One of them showed clearly marks of being tied up, starved. They were all executed with bullet holes in their head and on their bodies. And the Israeli Defense Forces rescued their bodies, and they were brought home for autopsies in Israel and for identification overnight. Hirsch, Eden, Carmel, Alexander, Almog, and Ori. Innocent Israeli civilians, 5 out of 6 was at the Nova Music Festival. 1 was kidnapped in one of the kibbutzim near the Gaza border, between 23 and 40 years old, kidnapped on that horrendous day when the 7 October massacre occurred, into Gaza and held hostage in Gaza by Hamas, ISIS terrorists, and brutally executed, within the last 48 hours. These were hostages that was alive until 48 hours. So I'm sending my deepest condolences, my deepest and heartfelt condolences to the families of these victims who have fought day and night for nearly a year to have their precious one, their wife, their son, their husband, home to be with them. Alex, actually one of the hostages, his wife gave birth to a son while he was in captivity. So this is absolutely devastating. All of Israel is just mourning today and is just completely crushed. On top of getting that information this morning, I started sharing that there has been a terror attack. There has been a shooting terror attack towards a minibus out near Hebron, and 3 police officers, I want to show you their faces, 3 police officers were brutally executed this morning by terrorists. And this gentleman, his daughter was a police officer down in Sderot, and she was fighting Hamas ISIS terrorists when they entered Israel on October 7, until she ran out of ammunition and she was killed by Hamas ISIS. And now her father was killed in a terror attack today. This is the reality. I'm sorry. This is the reality here in Israel in one day. In one day. I want to say their names. I want to find it. Of course, I need to use, forgive me because I need to use notes. Arik Ben Eliyahu was the young police officer. He was 37 years old. Hadass Brandt, she was 53. And Ronnie Sakuri, he was 61. Ben Eliyahu is survived by his wife and 3 children. 3 children and a precious woman lost their husbands and their father in this heinous terror attack today. Barak is survived by her husband, 3 children and a grandchildren. Was notified that your wife, your grandmother and your mother was brutally murdered in a terrorist attack today. And then Sakuri from Sderot, he is survived by his wife, a daughter and a granddaughter, and then he had his daughter who was killed on October 7. So now There's a wife, and there's another daughter and a granddaughter, and they now have to bury their father and their husband, and they lost their daughter on October 7 also. 6 hostages brutally executed, shot in the head less than 48 hours ago. 3 precious police officers who was in a minibus, a police bus this morning, in a drive-by shooting with terrorists driving by and just plainly executed them in that vehicle this morning. So that is 9 funerals that now has to take place here in Israel. I am sending my deepest condolences to all the families of these police officers who was killed today in yet another heinous terror attack. Unfortunately, the terrorists managed to escape, and there is a manhunt on the way now to find these evil terrorists. So it's a very, very painful and devastating day here in Israel. I also want to show you this young soldier. He was killed out in Jenin. I have been reported, for those of you who have been following me for many, many years, how Judea and Samaria, and especially the northern part of the West Bank, is turning into a terrorist hub. Weapons has been smuggled in through the Jordan Valley to Hamas and Palestinian Islamic Jihad terrorists for years. We just had the terror attack today where 3 police officers were murdered in this horrendous terror attack. So I want to give you the name of this young soldier. His name was Elankan Navon. He was only 20 years old, from Petah Tikva. So the Israeli military and the intelligence agency picked up that there is an imminent threat that terrorists out in Samaria is planning to commit a major attack and massacre on one of the Jewish communities out in the northern part of Samaria. So that's why we have seen this massive operation around Nablus, around Jenin, where the Israeli military went in and did these anti-terrorism operations, where numerous terrorists was killed and also arrested, and they found many weapons and many storage facilities. And it was in one of these operations that this young soldier unfortunately were killed, and there were a couple of other soldiers who were severely injured. So things are boiling out in Judea and Samaria. There are so many weapons. There are so many terrorists out there. More than 2,000 Hamas terrorists has been arrested in Judea and Samaria since October 7. Thousands of terrorists has been arrested, and 2,000 of them was affiliated with Hamas out in Judea and Samaria since October 7. It's a hotbed for terrorism. Israel has a whole front out there. For years I have been reporting about the shooting and the stoning attacks, the ramming attacks that's taking place in Samaria from all of these wild terrorists. So it's just very sad. Over the weekend during Shabbat, we had 2 terrorists who came with bombs, manufactured bombs in their vehicles, who was out in Gush Etzion, and they planned to carry out massive terror attacks, bombing attacks in their vehicle. I shared about it on my social media, especially on my Telegram channel. I really want to encourage you to follow my Telegram channel where there's no censorship, which there is on other social media platforms, especially on my Facebook. So one terrorist actually drove into the gas station in Gush Etzion, and it caught on fire, and this terrorist was neutralized, but his car was packed with bombs. And in another incident, a terrorist infiltrated a Jewish community, and that prompted the security establishment in that community to pursue him. So so the security forces in their vehicle rammed into the car of that terrorist, and he got out, and that terrorist was shot, but then the bomb in that car exploded. So that happened just this Shabbat, literally yesterday. 2 car bombs, massive terror attacks was planned by terrorists out in Gush Etzion in Judea and Samaria, and these 2 terrorists was neutralized, but their cars were full of bombs. So everything is on a high alert. There is so much happening here right now. We really, really need your prayers for such a time as this. I want to end this by saying that the numbers came out because it has been spoken about that it was only 3,000, I'm sorry for my hair, it was only 3,000 terrorists who entered Israel on October 7, but that is not true. Channel 12 News here in Israel said that 7,600 terrorists infiltrated Israeli territory, and 3,800 of them was from Hamas. Another 2,200 was Gaza's civilians in Gaza, who also breached into Israel and took part in the plundering and the looting. And then there was 1,000 terrorists who fired towards Israel from within Gaza. So in total, 7,000 terrorists fired and infiltrated Israel on that morning, on Simchat Torah, October 7, when the worst massacre towards the Jewish people happened since the Holocaust. So, like I said, today is a bad day. Things are on high alert. These terrorists are everywhere, and they are planning bombing attacks. Only 2 weeks ago did a terrorist with a bomb in a backpack manage to get all the way into Tel Aviv, and according to reports, he saw a synagogue and he wanted to detonate his bomb, but he detonated too early, so only the terrorist was blown up in the streets in Tel Aviv. So everything is on a high alert. It's a devastating day. I am traumatized. All of the people living here in Israel is traumatized. 6 precious hostages executed in Gaza within the last 48 hours. 3 police officers plainly executed, murdered today in a heinous terror attack while they are sitting in their mini police bus out near Hebron. Another soldier killed when the Israeli military is doing these anti-terrorism operations around Jenin and Nablus, which is hotbeds, terrorist nest out in the northern part of Samaria. So again, I'm sending my heartfelt condolences to all the families who have lost a loved one in Gaza and in the terror attack this morning. 9 funerals is going to take place here in Israel now. It is just I don't know what to say. I don't really know how to explain what it's like to be here with the trauma and the ongoing trauma and the ongoing grief and new terror attacks and new bombing attacks and more hostages being killed, being brought home to Israel. But I really want to encourage you to just pray for Israel for such a time. It's this. God is saying, comfort my people. And there has never been a more important time than this moment to comfort his people from all the grief and sorrow. On a personal note, I was asked again, Jane, what about you? Yes, I still did not find my apartments. I'm moving out September 30. I was just informed today that now this apartment is rented out where I am at. So I still need to find a fully furnished home where I can continue to have a home, a sanctuary, and share news to all of you around the world in this critical hour for Israel. God bless you, all of the amazing friends standing with Israel in this very, very sad time. Bye.